Holy God, welcome back to E3 2018.
Oh my God.
I'm still here. You can see it's not possible to pack any more bodies on this couch, but we wanted to make it as informed of a couch as humanly possible here. I'm really happy we got everybody here.
This is the Royal Rumble of interviews. At the end,
dive in, take each other out.
Last one that stays on the sofa wins.
Jason won the seat.
There's a tiny triangle of space right here. Someone else could get in there.
Let me fill that.
Yeah, okay, you're ready. Get in there. Get in there.
Plenty of room over here.
Okay, who's here? For the audio listeners, this is chaos. All right. Jason Rubin is here, who officially is the VP of Content for Oculus.
Correct.
Also, you happen to co-found a Naughty Dog, is that right?
Many, many years ago.
I'm sure people bring it up every single day. Congratulations again on that.
What's Naughty Dog? What's that?
I don't know. I don't work there anymore.
Wild
They kind of make games.
We also have the CEO of Twisted Pixel, Bill Muehl.
Thank you for inviting me to your apartment.
Yes, you know, you can stay as long as you want. It's like $25 a night for extra people to sleep over.
Reasonable. I'll take it.
Okay, great. Twisted Pixel director Josh Baer.
Good to be here, guys. Thank you very much. Love this position. Really comfy right now.
Your shorts
really
looking
loving
great,
it.
man. Could not be better. We have Mike Builder, the CEO of Jackbox.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's an honor. And Allard
Laban.
Laban, there we go. You informed me, VP of Creative and Studio Art Director for Jackbox as well.
That is correct.
Okay, now it's up to you guys to figure out what you have in common outside of sheer common. Does anybody know each other here?
Well, we work together.
Of
we
course,
got a bunch of
that side
projects
the
together. Wilson's Heart and Defector, which has been announced. So
it's
that's 3 on 2 already.
We should be familiar.
You got to come up with something.
So Mike and I work together too.
Right. And I know Bill. I used to work with him at Midway Games.
Really? What did you do at Midway?
Well, a lot of things. I was the Chicago studio head when I left.
Oh, wild. Yeah. And then what did you do at Midway?
Before it all went down in flames, I was part of a central team which helped all the other game devs. As they started acquiring a lot of studios across the U.S. and overseas, just kind of coordinating a lot of the resources across the game teams.
What do you guys think?
You were also Sub-Zero, right? Isn't that?
Oh my God!
Yes,
we're going to get into that right now.
Are you kidding?
Are we getting into that?
He's lost a little of the muscle mass since then, but yes.
Okay, I just destroyed the.
No, this is for which Sub-Zero are you?
Thanks, Jason.
All of them.
You know the babalities?
Yeah. I was probably more like you, Shaky Jake.
Yes, that's right.
What is the story? What is this? What are you doing?
Seriously, he was Curtis Stryker. He wasn't Sub-Zero. That's a joke.
It's just late, Stryker. And it's been a long E3. So that's a throwaway.
I got really
just ignore that kind of comment.
I can do it.
There's no depth.
We're going to edit this, right?
Yeah. What do you guys think of when you look back at your time at Midway? What's the overall lesson of Midway's art?
All right. Mike?
Wow.
That's a big question.
Yeah. Don't just acquire a boatload of studios and think you can suddenly make 9 AAA games in a couple-year period.
Microsoft, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Yeah, right.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the downside?
There was a massive growth plan, and the burn just went through the roof, and games were late, and there wasn't any kind of revenue to support it. We had a couple games that made real good money, but they couldn't support the burn.
Yeah, and so This Is Vegas is left by the wayside?
You got it. This Is Vegas is definitely one of those. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's also a shared technology mandate that was a little rough for some of the teams.
Yeah. I mean, again, it tried to grow way too big, way too fast. So.
Yeah.
But still some cool stuff that came out of it for sure. Now the Rem's still making some great
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, a lot of cool stuff in Chicago came out of it, right? Yeah. Iron Galaxy, Jackbox has started up, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, how big is Jackbox these days?
We're 30 people.
Really?
So we're pretty small. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
30 people.
30 people. We do
5 games a year.
5 games a year in a pack, and then we put it out on 10 platforms simultaneously. So.
And is everybody just sprinting at all times?
Right now.
We are sprinting.
Absolutely right now.
Sprinting hard right now. But we have sort of a cycle over the year where we kind of ideate during the winter months and then, get our selections down. We usually have, 10, 20 games to pick from. And then we narrow it down to 5. And then we just work.
It just feels like a constant game jam in that place of like, what can we crank out in this window, like a 7-month production period or whatever it might be.
It was very chaotic at first, but we've gotten much better with our process and kind of incubating and prototyping and testing and figuring out what's going to work. But yeah, it's fun in that way. It's very game jam-like.
Yeah. So Jackbox Party Pack 5. How you doing over there, Josh?
Loving
it.
Feeling good?
Feeling great.
Have you guys ever played the Jackbox Party Pack games at all?
I have not, but I used to sell them. When I was in college, I worked at it's now GameStop, but it was Babbage's. So I used to sell those
You
games.
sold You Don't Know Jack.
You Don't Know
P-
Jack.
PC CD-ROM.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back big box.
Right.
All that good stuff.
Right.
Big bald face on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the big,
Of course.
scary dude.
His name is Mick,
Yeah.
and he's now a chiropractor.
Sorry, Mick, you're not a scary dude. I take that back.
This is the lore. And now You Don't Know Jack is back, right?
Yeah, we just announced it as one of the games in Pack 5.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What was that process like to finally bring that thing back?
About 3.5 years to figure out we actually wanted to do it. It's a big game, and try to figure out how to do it in current platforms. But it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we got a little guff from people, especially about the Jack Attack that we did with mobile. There was sort of a small amount of latency, so people got kind of salty about that. So we addressed that. We have a whole new Jack Attack that is designed for mobile. So,
Really?
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's been a weird year, like a year span for trivia games and games that are close to your guys' field of view just with HQ.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys have played HQ at all.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to know what you guys think of that phenomenon.
It's amazing. It's great.
Yeah.
We've always kind of dreamt of a sort of like real-time, event-based trivia thing. But, the servers and all that kind of bandwidth required was just not doable for a small company like us.
Right.
I think what's really interesting is there's appointment-based programming in the gaming space now,
Right.
where everything is DVR, consume it when you want. You don't have to do it live. And here, this thing pushes notifications, and everyone gathering around primetime TV. And the fact that exists and works is really interesting. And
Yeah. Have you played it, Jason? HQ?
I have.
What do you
I
think?
did. It's brilliant, right? There's probably millions of people trying millions of things, and this is the one that rose to the top. But I have friend groups that don't play games at all, and they're playing it.
Yeah.
I was over New Year's. I was at a ranch a friend has up in Santa Ynez, which is about 2 hours north of here in LA, and people that I never thought would be playing games. All of a sudden, everyone's scurrying around. What the hell is going on here? HQ Trivia, HQ. I'm like, we're playing Trivia Pursuit. I had no idea what's going on, and they're all playing. It's insane.
What is that? Is it just so simple that everybody can jump on board, or what creates that type of game where everybody just has to do it no matter what, and no one's turned off by the form factor?
I'd love to know. What's the recipe? Yeah.
Yeah, Josh, do you have any insight? Like, what's the greatest breakthrough for you guys? You think Twisted Pixel, where you felt like the widest audience is playing your games?
Oh man, wide audience and Twisted Pixel is still in the works, I would say.
It's a VR hockey stick. We're gonna hit that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard, man. I mean, for us, it's completely different. I think. I mean, we were trying to when we first started out, and I would say to a certain amount now still. We would start with like characters. It was trying to find like the next Mario or the next Crash, or just trying to put personality in characters and see if that would stick, and then you could bring anyone in. And it's just so different now that from what we started with, what we're trying to do now, because with the Rift and all this stuff, we're trying to make you. So it's a lot. Just
To remove character.
Not to remove character, not by any means, but to bring character into you when we don't know you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is an interesting kind of design challenge. So trying to kind of work on that.
I think on HQ Trivia, there are a lot of people, when I started making games 30 some odd years ago, nobody played games. You had to be a geek. It was the stigma of playing games, let alone making games, was huge. And there's still large swaths of humanity that, or at least Western humanity, that don't want to say they're gamers.
Totally.
And yet it's so innate in human nature. You hand something to them like HQ Trivia, which isn't a game but is a game, and they're immediately, involved in it. They just need that excuse that, I'm not a gamer, but I love this, right? My wife's like that. She's not a gamer. She spends more than I do on games because she gets into some mobile thing. It ends up picking her pocket for hundreds of dollars. And I'm like, what's going on with the Apple bill lately? And she's like, it happened again. Not a gamer,
Right.
Not a gamer, no.
It's so confusing.
but spends a huge amount of money on games.
Totally. Talking to people on the street, and they're like, yeah, I don't play games. Well, I play Candy Crush all the time, but that's not a game. It's like, what is your definition of a game then, everybody? It's confusing.
Right.
I don't get it. Okay, what are you guys showing off at E3 this year?
Yes, we have Defector, which we announced a couple months ago. Yes, that's our next kind of big Oculus title that we're working with Jason's publishing team on. So that's like putting players into a role as a super spy. So kind of letting people act out like crazy situations that are in exotic locales with really tons of action and stuff. And Josh can probably talk to a lot of the crazy stuff we're doing with that.
We would want it to be cool, man.
Just the coolest thing.
I mean,
I've ever seen.
when you can put on the the headset and you can see your hands. I mean, that's the biggest thing still for most people. Even when they have played, they can see their hands, and to be like, okay, well, what can I do with my hands? Well, you can do a lot of cool, crazy shit with that. So every kind of part of our game is trying to be like, how can we push VR forward? We started with Wilson, and now to this. I think that's a pretty nice leap. So,
and what is that, Jason? What is it about Twisted Pixel that got you interested in their talent set, and why are they now making their sophomore effort in VR here?
Extremely creative, really funny.
It helps.
Deeply funny, not funny stupid, but like the funny stuff. They have the funny stupid.
Yeah,
in
I was
there
going to
too.
say,
just
some
to
of
be
that.
clear,
There's
Just
some
the
of
way
that.
Josh
a lot
is
of
sitting
this
here
stuff,
alone.
like you play it. You play
games are the
something
people.
Like
What are we
Wilson
talking
a
about?
second or third time, and you realize there's actually some pretty deep layers of humor in there.
Yeah.
We're all exploring VR still. Like we don't know all of the things you can do with VR by far, and they have come up with some pretty interesting, revolutionary ways of dealing with VR. And you're not being fair to yourself with Defector. Defector is an over-the-top action movie where you're doing the things that an over-the-top action hero would do. You're doing them. Yeah. So all the jumping from one plane to another plane, grabbing onto the side of the plane, climbing up the plane. If you ever wanted to know what it felt like to be Tom Cruise at his best in a Mission Impossible, that's the game they're making with a massive dose of humor. So it's amazing what they've come up with. I'm always amazed.
Yeah, I know it's cliche, but we are really trying to do stuff that does not translate on a flat screen like a TV, so that people say, okay, well, I really do need to see what this is about, climbing this plane, or skydiving from plane to plane, or driving a car out of the back of a plane. Like that's just completely different sitting on a couch, with a controller. Right. And so that's just like we're just trying to find those like cool scenarios that wouldn't be possible.
And optionality. I mean, I don't think I'm going out of what I'm allowed to say because it's been in the trailer, but there are moments where things branch and you could jump out of a plane and try to catch onto another plane that's passing, or drive a car out the back of a plane and try to do something totally different as an escape. And again, it's like being an action hero, right? What's your crazy over the top way of getting out of this scenario? Yeah. And only VR can really put you in there. Everything you do in games, it's amazing. It's beautiful. I built them for years. But you're always seeing it through a window. You're always looking at someone else doing it, no matter what happens. Even if it's a first-person game, it's not you. It's the arms coming around the side. I'm looking at a TV. Coming around the side of a TV and your legs pop up in front of you. It's amazing that they can get first-person shooters to make you feel like you're falling out of a helicopter. Right. But you never really feel like you're falling out of a helicopter. It's different in VR. Yeah. You feel like you're falling out of that helicopter.
Imagine answering trivia questions from Jackbox as you're falling out of an effing helicopter.
This Royal Rumble here is going to turn into
a great idea. Now I know why we're all here together. This is brilliant.
In the middle of an action scene, it's going to stop and say something like, who was the third country to invade Russia in the winter and not succeed? It's like... Let's get it all together.
Yeah. Jackbox, do you guys have any interest in VR? Is that just a whole other world that's like, man, we'd have to ramp up in some weird ways?
Yeah. I don't know that it fits what we do right now.
Come on, guys. Yeah. Come on.
But, I mean, do we have interest? Absolutely. I mean, we have rigs at the office. Personally, I own an Oculus. Like, absolutely. It's awesome technology. The stuff that's being done is amazing and groundbreaking. But for us to do game shows, trivia, party games in that environment, so
it's hard.
It's a little different, and I'm not sure it's the perfect execution of it.
When are you guys going to do the Running Man?
Sure.
With trivia.
Sure.
And then when you fail, really crazy weird
stuff. We have a battle royale trivia that we're working on right now, where the window closes in, people die. It's amazing.
Cool. Yeah. I'm kind of curious about group efforts in VR, because what we do is we create an environment for people to laugh together. That's a big part of it, and it's a party. It was actually our charter a few years ago before we created Fibbage, was that we kind of focused on just being a party game company. And, I've seen a couple of things out there for VR and group discovery. There was a murder game, VR game that seemed kind of interesting, where people from different parts of the country could play murder in a VR setting. That's really kind of interesting to me. But mostly, our games are about us people on a couch drawing dicks.
Besides the drawing dicks, step back off that for a second. Right now, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of people in VR chat doing nothing but walking around, being goofy with each other, and being social. Yeah. We believe in the long run that VR is a social medium and that people are going to be in it together. How you make that work with trivia is why we need brilliant people like you working in VR. I can't answer that question, but I can tell you there are certain things about being in VR with other people that are not like being in person. It never will be, but as close as you'll ever get if you're not in person. And you could make a game show where people are standing next to each other competing. Right. One's in Phoenix, one's in Shanghai, one's somewhere else. And they will feel like they're standing next to each other on stage in front of a virtual audience. Right. It's going to happen. Like, this stuff is all going to happen.
Sure.
You know, actually, it's funny that you say that because I worked on the first You Don't Know Jack in 1995. Jeez. And I was the art director for that. And Wes Boyd, who is the president and CEO of Berkeley Systems, basically said the exact same thing to me. He was like, one day people will be playing this in a virtual environment, and they will be in different places around the world. Exactly. Like, who are you?
And the thing is, that is happening right now. Like, we have a game called From Other Suns, which has drop-in, drop-out space exploration. And one of the things I really like doing is dropping into VR in these multiplayer games and talking to people about their experience with their Rift or, you know, with their Oculus Go or whatever they're using. And I started talking to some guy on this spaceship. The game works that if you stop kind of moving forward, it'll just stop and let you talk, which is great. Right. And we just started chatting, and he's like, "Oh, you work at Oculus? That's amazing. I'm thinking about getting into. Here's my background. He came from the military, and he had a security background. I'm like, well, man, I work at Facebook. Oculus, sure, but we need your help with the following. And we ended up talking for about a half an hour with, you know, these fake guns in our hand, waving them around like hand motions. So if you come to Facebook, what you're going to do with these giant, you know, goofy space guns, completely forgot about what was going on. I ended up getting him to, I don't know if he got the job, to be honest with you, but he was in Maryland. I was in San Francisco Bay Area. And we were talking like two people anywhere else you'd be, and someone else dropped in and he comes up, hey, what's going on? Hey, he works at Oculus. Really? You work at I want to get into games. I'm like, come on, let's go on a raid. You can just get lost in the social, and the game just disappears. And that would never happen in most multiplayer games on a 2D screen. You don't feel the
reminds me of those interviews with Red versus Blue, like those old, like, there's like, you know, people are getting shot and whatnot, but there's an interview going on.
Well, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I know for us, a little bit different. But you know, we're making our console games for years and years and years, and they're all different, and it's fun, and I love it. I love it so much. When we did Wilson, that was the first time in a long time, just as artists, developers, designers, that it was really like, oh my God, what the hell are we doing? Like, how do we, you know, we had some of the first pairs of touch to work with, and they were amazing. We're like, how do we, because there's so many new things you have to think about when you're going to try to make, you know, what I consider like the console experience in VR or whatever. So I will say, just from a developer standpoint, it's been extremely interesting and challenging and sometimes frustrating, but in a good way, to try to figure out that stuff. And then when you do kind of solve some things as baby steps and you get a little further, and it's actually really rewarding to be able to do that.
We've all been developers for a long time, and every so often you take a gigantic step back in the industry and have to relearn. Going from 2D games to 3D games, you know, going from the Mario and Sonic era into the Crash Bandicoot Mario 64 era, we had to relearn everything about character action games because nothing translated directly across. Right. And I feel like since Crash, we've been on a amazing journey of better and better and better, but it's been an incremental journey. And everybody that's working in VR is taking a giant step back again because nothing translates across literally. And we're just kind of slowly regaining. And there are developers that hate that, right? It's like filmmakers that are rejecting 360 film because it's not what they grew up on. Spielberg, famous for saying, this is dangerous. Not dangerous like it's going to hurt someone, dangerous because you take the control away from the director. Young directors are like, I'm going to figure this out.
Totally.
Right. And same thing in the game industry. Their developers are like, I don't want to deal with relearning things. Most of the developers I deal with are like, it makes me feel young again. This makes me feel like I did when I was just cutting my teeth learning how to develop games, and it's extremely exciting.
I love the idea of Jason, if you go around E3, like pitching developers on the Fountain of Youth, like, hey, Allard, you want to feel like you did back in that first Jack, come on, man, come over to VR.
Like, what's the trade-off?
I wonder.
I'm curious. You know?
when I
need some more. I need it now.
I'm VR curious now.
I wonder when I started in '85 how many 50-year-old developers there were. There was probably.
You were 50 back in 1985. You look great.
I wasn't 50 tonight. But we're in now a world where we are older developers, right? We've gotten older, and it feels nice to be back inexperienced, not know what to do, experimentation, trial and error, success. That's the foundation of the game business.
Yeah, I think one thing that was really remarkable when we, first hooked up with you guys in 2015, you were very open that you didn't have all the answers to things, right? You're like, okay, we have, a handful of devs that are working on this issue. Here's some general guidelines, but feel free to break them. And that was like verbatim coming out of your mouth. Like, hey, here's some success we've had with this mechanic, or this, use of touch. But, feel free to experiment, and the rules are almost there to be broken.
A lot of the rules that we would have put down on paper, because there were people at Oculus that were like, here are the rules. No developer can do this. No developer can do that. These are the rules that make VR good. All of those rules have been broken successfully since we started. If we had actually gone out and made those rules, we'd be in a much worse place in VR right now.
Yeah, totally. And I'm so jealous of your spot, Jason, because it's so cool to be in this industry for so long, know exactly which developers you look up to, which you think are extremely talented. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'd imagine you have a dump truck of money, and you get to choose which developers to try and persuade to come over to the VR side and then just load them full of cash. Is that how it works?
Well, first of all, I have respect for Josh.
Nope.
Josh, come on, man.
Capcom and everybody said no, so I was like, Twisted Pixel.
Where is this? Yeah, the dump truck. We have that visit.
I have respect for every developer, no matter what the scale, because it's a weird combination of art and business.
Yeah.
It is a lonely business. Unlike film, where you're often doing it with a lot of people, small developers start small, often in basements, often in garages. I've been there.
Yeah.
So I have a huge amount of respect, regardless of the size of the developer, for even the gumption to try to make a game, because the success to failure ratio is so high. As to the dump truck of money, I wouldn't say it's a dump truck. Facebook has been very forward thinking with its investment. Mark and the rest of the senior leadership believe in VR. You hear that from him every time
That's great.
We have an OC, or every time he's on stage at F8. And it has allowed us to push the industry farther, faster than I think if we wouldn't call it a dump truck, but significant financial backing.
For sure. And God, you're in such a cool spot too, just to think back in your history and then think of, let's see, I worked with 4A, like the Metro team, back with THQ a little bit. I know they're talented as hell. They have the heart. Let's reach out to them to see if they're interested.
Totally.
Like just to have that internal Rolodex and just call those people up. That's the coolest spot in the industry.
Well, and one of my goals in life has always been to treat everybody I've worked with, not only in the industry, but outside the industry, but especially in the industry, extremely well. So even a THQ going into bankruptcy that I joined, and some of the most hellacious moments for people when they're losing their job, losing their health care, losing whatever they're losing, I tried my best to do right by all of the teams and all the people at THQ.
Yeah.
And many of them are now working on VR projects because of that.
Totally.
So
yeah,
you can get ahead by being nice in this world.
Yeah, it works out, everybody. I want to know what Jackbox's E3 is like. What are you guys doing? Are you taking meetings? Are you trying to get this thing on even more platforms? I don't know if it's possible.
You can announce your own platform.
Yeah.
What other platforms?
Engage?
No.
The Ouya versions.
I'd buy that.
I can't get carts manufactured in time, unfortunately. Yeah, it's mostly meetings. A lot of developer relations stuff, talking to all the platforms that we currently work with and launch our games on.
What else is there to talk about? I'm very naive, but like they're doing well. They're on all those platforms. It's great. What do those meetings entail?
Well, we're on this kind of annual cycle of another Jackbox Party Pack each year. And so a lot of it is, hey, here's where we're at in the development cycle. What kind of support can we get when we launch? What kind of featured placement can we get in the store? What kind of sales are coming up to get involved with? Any new offerings that exist, like Game Pass or things like that. How does it make sense for us? Talking through those things. The other stuff that we're doing is taking our games and looking at big sports, esports, and kind of big venues where, where thousands of people are kind of gathered together.
We're the new hot dog and donut chasing each other.
Okay, is that how it works?
Well, it could be, right? In a sports stadium, you're at a baseball game or a basketball game, and there's a big jumbotron. Everybody's got a phone. Why can't you take out your phone and join the game and play, right?
Do you think you ever run out of Jack puns? Because I'm just sitting here thinking of all the puns you can make with "you don't know Jack," and some of them are not fit for this.
Right, sure.
But it's endless.
True.
The problem with your games, as far as I can see it, the only problem with Jackbox Party Pack games is I spend too much of my time trying to stop the party when I have friends over and saying, we need to appreciate how well written that is. No one else in the world can come up with that prompt. They're so
God bless you.
good.
Yeah, our writers are probably thrilled to hear that.
Unbelievably funny.
Yeah, thanks.
And that's a great part about being in Chicago, because in Chicago, there's some of the most talented and funny people in the Midwest that all sort of congregate around I.O. and Second City, and they work for us all.
Is that right? Because they don't want to move. You just get like those locals, and it's like they always have a chip on their shoulder. Like, we're going to stick it to those Californians over there.
No, some people do move to California, and many of them have. But there's definitely a community out in Chicago that we've been lucky enough to.
Yeah, and it's constantly growing and recycling new people, trying to make it big in the comedy scene. Yeah. And they're great writers for us.
Yeah. They're amazing.
I'd imagine.
I worked at Disney for 5 years, and it was great. I had great budgets. I was able to work with some of the most talented animators. But when I got an offer to come back and work with Jellyvision, I was like, well, I like to design for funny people. I like to design for smart people. And it was a total no-brainer to actually just come and work with these guys that made me laugh like nobody else has.
Here's a strange question for you guys. So just for an anecdote here. We're in a bar recently, and we decided, like, hey, let's play Quiplash 2 on the big screen at this bar. This will be a hoot. Always the best time ever with my friends. Went up there, just immediately the worst answers you can imagine.
Right.
And I love a good dick drawing, love a good dick joke, but we're talking like just bottom of the barrel internet crap. I'm not talking even comedic level, just like offensive stuff.
Like racist stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How much do you guys worry about that? Of like when you're building a prompt and you have to think about every party across the nation and how there might be one racially insensitive person at that party.
Fascist parties.
Right. We don't celebrate and condone that behavior, but it will happen. And if it happens in the privacy of your home, it's different than it happening in a bar or a public venue, right?
Or at a sports arena. So how do you deal with that?
Well, so some of the titles that we're looking to place in those environments are less user-generated content. Right, so a game like Espionage, which is in our pack, that doesn't involve user-generated content. You just, pick your percentage. You bet and vote and that kind of thing, and then the result is shown and you're on a leaderboard. So it's a similar kind of groupthink. Thousands of people can play simultaneously, but we don't have to worry about a dick drawing showing up or some horribly offensive prompt being, entered into the game and showing up.
Everybody can choose 69% over and over again. Like,
well, and they will, but that's less offensive, I guess. I don't know.
In the public arena like that.
As you would expect, we have a ton of people that stream our games on Twitch, and that's been a huge vehicle for spreading awareness about our games, and we've done a ton of server changes on the back end to support thousands and thousands of people in any single game. So right now, 10,000 people can join a single game. So if a streamer goes live, their entire audience can join the game and play. And so that lends itself to expanding into bigger venues, but what it also does is bring the worst in people out. Totally. If there's anonymity and if there's no way to kick them, and
you know what's funny? The word Jew. I'm going to write this 1,000.
Yeah. So we have added a whole bunch of features. We've added a VIP mode, and you can go in and censor people or kick people. Yeah. We've added the requirement if you want to enable Twitch login, so people aren't anonymous in your game. So if they do something bad, you can actually ban them from your channel as well. Yeah, so we've tried to combat a lot of those things, but again, you can't stop everything. So we want to just be more conscious of it in a public venue or a setting like that than in your home. In your home, you want to be horrible, close the door, don't broadcast it, be horrible, I guess.
And and if you tweet it, we'll see it and we'll take it down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
I'd imagine there's some interesting debates about free speech within Jackbox.
Well, we did toy with the idea of having filters, but people will just break filters. They'll come up with a different way of saying a horrible thing. We also were like, why? Like, because some of the stuff that would be offensive to one person would be funny to us, or it's all kind of relative. So, but there is terrible things that people have said.
Now, we do have a game called TKO where you can draw terrible T-shirts that go up and battle each other.
Yeah.
And if you played it, it's a hoot. It's quite a bit of fun.
Amazing.
And you can imagine some horrible T-shirt designs come out of those. And we added the feature where you can go in and buy that shirt at the end of the game. And we have sold a ridiculous amount of T-shirts. We didn't expect we would, but we've done great on T-shirt sales as well. But the nice thing is the fulfillment supply, or the people that do the T-shirt fulfillment, do another kind of pass on. Right. We're not going to print this.
Really?
Yeah, and they one of the funniest moments ever in Jackbox was when this vendor sent us this lengthy email basically describing the criteria with which they used to filter.
Oh,
and
that's
just the most horrible stuff in here, and like all grammatically parsed, like, it's okay to say Johnny did this to Susie, but it's not okay to say Johnny, like just horrible stuff.
The rules,
but internally this circulated. It was like the most hilarious email ever. Like, and thank God you're doing this because we don't have to do it now. That's great. Yeah.
Speaking of funny, Josh, I remember years ago I went to your office in Austin there. And
it has been a long time, man. It's like 5 or 6 years ago or something,
it was an
right?
absurd amount of time. It was when you guys were like maybe months away from shipping Misplosion Man. Yeah. And it was such a fun vibe in that studio for the few hours that we spent there. It was probably not even an hour, actually.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, it was just wonderful because I feel like you guys were getting ready to move. Is that right?
It was. Yeah. We were about ready to... Yeah. That's right. Yeah, okay. we were in the old office and we had found a bigger place that felt more like, instead of mom's basement, it was like maybe a real business, so that was nice to feel like a real business.
Yeah, but we went in there and you showed us all the cutscenes from Misplosion Man. And also, I don't think I'd seen it before then. It was the first time you showed like the beard engine prompt.
The videos, yeah.
Yeah.
Frank.
They're so good. And you guys seemed to revel in like, yeah, we're really spending Microsoft's money in a very stupid way here.
Well, so that one was before Microsoft.
Oh, was it? Okay.
That was before Microsoft's money, and there were a couple. There were a couple intro videos couldn't really show anymore once we got owned by Microsoft. Not in the sense that I think they would offend anyone. Just people who didn't get it.
In line with their brand.
In line with their... That's a great way to put it.
You still made Wavy 2, man. You're allowed to be as strange as you could possibly want to be. Which, by the way, we just played last year during Extra Life.
Did you really?
Oh, that's
live
great.
stream.
Oh, that's cool,
and,
man.
I was the big champion of it because I think it's amazing. And so many people watching the stream and in the office had never seen it before, just blown away. Like, how did I never see this when it came out? It's so effing stupid and fun.
Yeah, we had a good time with that, man. That was just free DLC we did. That was Bill and I dipping into filmmaking. We literally did that in 2.5 or 3 days.
3
We had
days
no idea
on
what
location.
we were doing.
And,
it's all live
105
action.
degree Texas, summer.
And you could use Kinect. It was like, do you guys remember Mad Dog McCree? It was literally our version of Mad Dog McCree. And it was
where people are like doing Hadoukens and stuff, and it just gets
Oh,
crazy.
it's so stupid.
Okay,
That's so great.
Way of the Warrior.
Ooh,
American Laser Games, the creator of Mad Dog McCree, bought the rights to Way of the Warrior Arcade.
What?
And then went bankrupt.
Why have we never spoken about this?
Is that where they were going to put the 3DOs in the cabinets?
They put 3DOs in the cabinets.
I think I remember reading about that.
And they had this Mad Dog McCree thing going on, and they were like, we need to expand beyond the video arcade games. So they put 3DOs inside arcade cabinets, and they went after Way of the Warrior, and they paid us, and then promptly went bankrupt.
Once I think I know everything about Way of the Warrior, a new awesome treasure happens.
We were talking about it earlier.
We'll spend all night talking about Way of the Warrior.
Every 6 months, he'll peel back a few more layers, like just teasing it out.
Well, Jason just knows everything about this industry. Like, what's been your greatest geek out moment working with Mr. Rubin over here?
Way of the Warrior, man. I think it's the first thing we told him when we met him. Like, dude, you made Way of the Warrior.
Characters. So just to be clear, he may not have been Sub-Zero, but I was the ninja and Konotori.
Only the finest.
And the voice of the announcer too.
I mean, besides loving the digitized fighters, I mean, I love the idea that it's two guys doing whatever it takes
in an apartment.
In Boston. And I remember
$86,000, the entire budget of that game.
Oh wow,
that's dedication, man. That's you love games.
We have to impute the lost time, but $86,000.
We have in the Informer office, I hope we've shown you, but we're digging through our archives not too long ago, and we have like a raw disc that you sent with like hand drawn on the cover with your address in Boston and stuff. It's just awesome to see. Like, hey, there's a Naughty Dog production.
Crazy
Everybody.
time.
That's awesome.
I mean, and that is the beauty of the video game industry is two people sitting in a basement or wherever they are and spitting out something that ends up, you're laughing about, oh God, that was what, 93?
Mm-hmm.
So 25 years later.
Man, so
25th anniversary, Way of the Warrior.
Yeah,
You heard it here first.
Dude, you're not gonna
Needs a
Here
gold
we are.
edition. Bring it back. Remastered for sure.
It would sell a full 10 copies.
We got
4K
we got 6
remaster.
months to get this out.
I
It's
feel
remastered.
like Vicarious could spin something out of that though.
They probably could.
They could hit that marketing
And
hard.
you're
like,
saying 4K remaster. The digital scan of the characters are probably 50 pixels tall.
4K remaster. It needs
Come on,
it.
man, blow it up.
needs
Yeah.
it.
Totally redraw it.
You know, that's just
I'm
called a
not getting
zoom.
back in the ninja suit. I did it once. We're done. We are done.
Are there any other Naughty Dog lost games along the way that could ever see the light of day in any form here?
Jack. I mean,
What?
Jack and
I was
Daxter.
talking
I
about
mean,
like unreleased stuff. Though.
yeah,
like,
no.
Okay.
We released everything we did. We finished every game. We never had a game canceled, to my memory, and we released everything. Like so, it's all out there.
That's wild.
But I mean, my Twitter feed, the Jack and please remake Jack. I'm like, I can't. I don't own the IP.
Would you want to see it? Would it be a little bit of a wince if you saw the new art?
No, I didn't wince at all seeing Crash.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
I thought that was a good idea, and I thought they did a great job of it. I mean, I saw it before it came out. Like, I took a look at it, and I was like, wow, this is
Like
awesome.
they sent it to
That's
you
great.
for approval, or just out of curiosity?
Sony actually came, set up a PlayStation because where I was, there wasn't a PlayStation. Lots of VR, not a lot of PlayStations.
Right.
No problem with PlayStation, but they came and we took a look at it. Some of the early levels that they had done, and it's awesome.
You gave a thumbs up.
Totally give it a
Did
thumbs
you feel a
up.
little bit like George Lucas there, being like, "I like Last Jedi"?
Not quite like George Lucas, but
I think what I don't understand though is
there's no Jar Jar in the remake. Exactly. Like, we managed to keep the originals. Like, there was a period, Crash was kind of like doing great and kind of went through this period that we like to ignore and
Recall.
forget. And there were some of those games that you guys could drag out of that library you got
Right.
out there and just really embarrass Crash. And then Crash kind of is like, you know, he went to rehab.
It's a renaissance.
And he's back in the straight and narrow now, and everybody's loving it.
I saw him on the show floor today. It was great.
Totally.
Oh, really?
It's-
Oh,
He's
wow.
walking around.
It's nuts. I mean, you know, for various VR purposes, I was looking at the biggest IP in history of video games. And by the way, the list I was looking at was biggest unit sales. So, you know, something like Fortnite, for example, wouldn't show up because
Right,
it's
right.
new and it's digitally distributed and stuff. But Crash is right up there at the, 50 million units plus.
crazy.
Not a lot of titles that have sold more than 50 million units. And I think Naughty Dog did probably 4 of, I don't know, 20 plus games. And that's the vast majority of the sales, which is also interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, seriously though, hand to God, and I'm gonna make you put your hand up to God here. So, if they made a new Crash, if Vicarious Visions started making a new Crash, would you play it through to completion?
Well, I can punt on this one because the number of things I have time to play through to completion in these, I
Yeah?
have a 5-year-old daughter. I commute back and forth between LA and San Francisco and Oculus.
all right.
I mean,
Driving the dump truck with money around.
here's what I would say.
Then there's
I
that
would
Uber gig
start
that
it.
we got. Yeah.
And whether I finished it would depend on how
Okay.
well it played.
That's awesome. Josh, favorite E3 memory? We got to honor E3 here now that we're here. Do you have, going back through history, like how many shows have you been to now?
oh man, a lot. I don't know. I don't know what the exact number is.
Were you in Atlanta?
I was not in
Ooh, I was
Atlanta.
Atlanta. That was great.
There
It's
you go.
not in
So
Atlanta.
that dates you, right? Because there were
Yeah.
2 of those.
Yeah, and I went to the first one because the year
Oh
before.
wow.
That was a mess.
Yeah.
Those,
Wait, didn't it go back at some
Atlanta was
point?
not ready for E3 back then,
No,
right? We
no.
like broke the city, basically. Now Atlanta's great. Atlanta can handle
I
it.
love
But
Atlanta though because we went out to some seriously great parties.
yeah, and the steakhouses. I remember the steakhouses
yeah.
from those trips.
Food
And then
was
before that, it was CES
right.
because there was no E3.
Right.
Okay, favorite memory.
Yeah, what do you got?
I
Specific. Let's get
shouldn't
geeky.
say this.
No, please.
I was with Mr. Bill here. I had just started Twisted Pixel with a couple partners, and
Will this be also my favorite memory, or is this
Prob-
looking good?
I
don't
it
know.
might be a memory you
Okay.
don't remember. I don't know. This was when E3 they still had the huge. You guys remember like the Sony party, and the Nintendo part, like massive. And I don't know how you did it. I think you told me not to ask, but you're like, hey, I got you into the Sony party. And I was a nobody. I was like, dude, what's the Sony party? And you literally get on this like little train and they drive you up this hill and
overlooking the Hollywood Bowl. Yeah.
You get out and they have like like they have champagne. They're like, welcome to the Sony party. And you go in and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not important enough to be here. And I'm walking around like all these important guys are there. And I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. But I just immediately went to the buffet because it was all free. And I was super poor because I just started the company. So I'm just like eating as much as I can. And I can't even remember his name, but the head of Sony at the time.
It was Phil Harrison.
It was Phil Harrison, that's right.
I remember this.
My partner comes up like, hey, Josh, like you meet Phil Harrison. I have a huge piece of roast beef in my mouth. I'd like make a deal. You know, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Like trying to get a deal with Sony.
We didn't get a deal with Sony.
Didn't get a deal with Sony.
I don't understand why.
But got the roast beef.
Roast beef with fantastic. And there was supposed to be a band that played. It was really cool because I'm from Southern Indiana. And it's always been my dream to do games. So I went to Chicago to work for a couple of years to be at E3 on the magical roast beef train. That's like, it's like, you know what? I made it. Really I made it. I'm here. Yeah.
That's a good game.
It's my.
You should make the game the magical roast beef train. Yeah.
Crank out 5 a year. You guys make it.
All right. Yeah.
Come on.
All right.
I think we could team up on this.
Yeah. The crossover.
Trademark that already, or?
Jason, after so many years at E3, do you have a number one memory, number one geek out session?
I do. It's pretty easy for me. And there's been some great moments at E3, but there's no reason to believe that two kids that had put out Way of the Warrior beforehand, and that may have been our peak, we're going to make a mascot character.
Yeah.
For Sony. Right. And Andy and I just said we're going to do this. And Universal backed us, and they were dumb to do so. And we worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. And Sony was unaware of it for reasons that are too long to go into. But they came down and looked when we went alpha, which was, I think, probably a month or two, maybe 3 months before E3. And they'd never seen Crash. And coincidentally, Mario 64 had just been shown publicly for the first time in screenshots and stuff. And they had no character action game. And they realized they needed a character action game. So almost overnight, we became part of Sony's launch lineup. Oh my God. I think it was Twisted Metal got kicked out of their front primary spot. Wow. Sorry to the developers. And they put Crash Bandicoot right in this front spot. And there's pictures of this on the internet. And across from us was this little unknown character called Mario and Mario 64.
Yeah.
And this was the beginning of 3D character action gaming. And the show opened and I'm standing next to my game and people are playing it, like a lot of people. Yeah. And that hadn't happened like that before. I'd been to trade shows, but a lot of people, lines. And this guy walks up and I'm like, he looks really familiar. And it's Miyamoto.
Oh my God.
And he plays for a long time. And there's pictures of Mark Cerny, who was, heavily involved in the Crash Bandicoot series. He was our executive producer, but really involved. And Andy and Miyamoto. I didn't get in the photo. I don't know how. But that moment, watching the legend play my game, and you could see in his eyes, fear. This is going to be trouble.
Ooh, good. Wow.
This is not a crappy game. Because most games compared to Mario games, not that most games are crappy, but compared to Mario games, most games are crappy.
Totally.
And it looked really good, and they were sparse. We were dense. If you look at the history, I think Mario 64 was on the right path to character action free roaming, and we were kind of halfway there and still trying to hold on to tracks. But in that moment, you could see that Miyamoto was like, "Wow, this is not a joke."
Yeah.
And sure enough, we outsold Mario 64.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Congratulations.
I mean, part of that was PlayStation did better than Nintendo and everything, but that moment, Miyamoto playing my game.
That's absolutely amazing.
Everything else pales.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, hey, everything else pales on this podcast compared to that. Thank you so much for everybody coming by the Game Informer show. I greatly appreciate your effort, and your games are all wonderful. Looking forward to seeing what you guys push out in the future. Jackbox Party Pack 5 is coming out when?
October-ish.
Fantastic. The game's coming out when?
Later this year.
Later this year.
All right.
Or else.
It's coming out.
No more dump truck of money for you.
Exactly. The dump truck shuts and we send in the guys with the bats.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show podcast. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. We'll have another episode just like this. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.